Destroy the child. Corrupt them all.
Under the cloak of science, because you don't want to sound like you're preaching mumbo jumbo, like that's the only alternative, political policies get pushed through that are not scientific. They're pseudoscientific. It was science that told us about reefer madness and how marijuana would make you go insane, but it wasn't really science. It was just claimed that that was science. Like they said cigarettes were healthy for decades when they knew better. That wasn't a mistake. They knew damn well what the consequences of putting smoke in your lungs would be. But that's what they said anyway. You can manipulate studies and numbers, and it doesn't really matter what the consensus is on one side. It matters who's controlling the data. Whoever controls the data and numbers, there's a bottleneck there. So if you give somebody the wrong information, they're going to get the wrong conclusion. And a lot of the statistics are government numbers that the scientists are relying on. And so of course they agree. They all got the same bogus data. There was, and this doesn't negate climate change, but it's another example of how it can be wrong. They said the world was freezing in the 70s. That was based on the data they got, and it was dead wrong. And by they, it's the same people. Michael Mann, who's the hockey stick guy in global warming, where they fudged numbers on purpose to make it look like it was getting a lot hotter than it actually was. That's an exaggeration. Now, that doesn't mean it isn't true still, but it certainly doesn't mean it is true. They lied. He was involved in the global freezing hoax. And then they exaggerated the hole in the ozone all through the 90s and all that, and that is a natural consequence. And when you look at the whole data on climate change, there is a heartbeat-like pattern of freezing and warming which has existed prior to people coming on the earth. Now, if you ignore all that and start with the Industrial Revolution, it does rise. But when you look at the whole pattern, it was doing that anyway before people were even on the planet. That still doesn't mean it's not true, but it certainly doesn't mean it is true either. Science is and can be manipulated for political interest. And when you're grouping in all these gases, remember one year they were blaming cow poop because it has methane in it. And then once they got control over agribusiness, they did not change the amount of emissions. They just changed who got to distribute it, and now they don't talk about cow poop anymore. Highly subsidized, government-subsidized industries in ranching and farming want monopolies. And the solution that was proposed to climate change, which doesn't even reduce carbon emissions, was arranged in such a way that the small farms could sell their allotments to the larger ones rather than actually doing work. So that's what they did. The consequence of that is the larger farms have all the allotments plus their own, so they get to monopolize distribution, which is what they wanted. We can't have a discussion about it though. I could be wrong, but we can't talk about it because a leftist will interrupt you and go into an emotional meltdown before you can say more than 2 or 3 sentences. It's just, climate change is what I saw on TV. It has to be scientific consensus. You're anti-science, da 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 da. Well, I'm saying you are ignorant of politics, economics, and history, because those 3 things are on my side, and the science is fishy. You've really got to be skeptical when you're talking about that amount of money being affected by something and propose solutions that don't even do what they say they're going to do, which would be to reduce emissions. It's not anti-scientific. It's anti-government. I'm not going to believe the government numbers. If you can show otherwise, if you can negate these graphs that go back much further than the Industrial Revolution and explain why there's a heartbeat-like pattern and how that's different, go ahead. But no one ever does that.
Them all.